Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christy Denny's. We are going to be working together today in Form Simplicity. I also have Connie Nieto, who's another Miami trainer, who's going to be helping us with any of your questions inside of the chat. We're going to give it a few more minutes and let everyone join us. We're going to get started on miamirealtors.com. You can go ahead and access your Miami Gateway by signing on using that link right up at the top. You can then go ahead and click on Miami Gateway to access all of your products and services. As you sign in and enter your license and your password, we do have your Miami Gateway that you'll have access to. This is where all of your Miami services and single sign-on section is. If you scroll down, you do have the Form Simplicity icon right in the middle, so you can access Form Simplicity right from your gateway. So as you guys click on your gateway, I wanted to pop into Matrix really quick to show you that it is available for you inside of any listing. So if I were to open up a listing inside of Matrix, you have Form Simplicity available inside of Matrix. It's linked inside. So if I was interested in creating a contract as I preview this listing, you do have that available here. Also on your dashboard, inside of your external links, you also have a Form Simplicity icon listed. And up at the top, under links, you also have an additional link to Form Simplicity. So Matrix and Form Simplicity, they work together. In this class, we're going to be talking about how I can teach you how to use the program of Form Simplicity, but I can't offer you any legal advice. So any legal advice, please refer your questions to your broker. Also, we have the Florida Realtor Legal Hotline that they can answer your questions at no additional cost. All you would need to do is call the number. So you would call 407-438-1409. They're available 9 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. Monday through Friday. All you would need is your license number and they can assist you. Okay, so back into Form Simplicity, we do have our Form Simplicity icon and the dashboard that you have available. They've updated the screen. They have launched a new user-friendlier Form Simplicity. And recently we've had both available to us. We've had this new screen. We've also had their old version, which is the legacy platform. And it's been running simultaneously for about a year with this version. But starting December 2nd, only this form will be available. You will have pop-ups when you log in. You'll have important notifications. I can go ahead and exit out of these. Up at the top, it's going to have my name. If I want to see those notifications once again, they're housed here. So any updates to Form Simplicity, to forms and documents, you can find them under notifications. If you need help, you need additional assistance in creating your files or using the program, not only do you have the Miami trainers available for you here at the board, but you also have a help section. So I'm going to click on the help to show you that information. Under help, you do have getting started information, a database of knowledge. You also have additional trainings. If you prefer to view your training information as a how-to video, you have them available. You have their contact information and any updates. You also have a button to access support. I can scroll down, access the same menu bar, continue to scroll, and we have their tech helpline available for you. So I'm going to go ahead and click on support. You do have those knowledge articles, that phone number. So if you want to talk to a person, you have that information here. It's 407-587-1450. They're available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So they are available after hours, also on Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. to help you with your documents. If you're in the middle of an e-sign, they can actually log in to the system and walk you through those steps. If you need to open a case or send an email, you have that available here. And if you prefer to chat or receive support via chat, you have an online chat that's available for you, the same designated hours. Okay, now that we know how to get help, we also have our preference sections. So if I click on preference, you have information regarding your account. You'll have your preference information. If you'd like to upgrade, you can do so. Scrolling down, we have our general settings, which will include your email signature that you can fill out. After every change, make sure to click on Save Changes, clicking on Email Notifications. You want to go ahead and toggle on these sections to make them green so that you can receive your tasks when they're due, when you're going to receive a fax, any additional information regarding your transactions through the process of Form Simplicity, so you can receive those notifications that you need to do your business, and then go ahead and input an email address where you'd like those notifications to be sent. Once you've completed this, simply click on Save Email, and we can move on from email notifications. Scrolling down, you have your preferences and templates where you can manage that information. Okay, where you can draw and save your own e-sign signature or create a custom e-sign template. And that is all available up at the top under preferences. Moving down to our green floating bar, you also have home. So if you ever get lost, just come back home. Very difficult to mess up the system, so click around. Click around, explore. Worst case, you can call one of us to help you. You can call the tech helpline. You have your transactions, where all transactions that you have created are being housed. We also have available for you your blank forms. So any forms regarding real estate pertaining to whatever transaction that you need to take care of, all of those forms are available here. You have Florida forms, you have the Miami Association forms. Let me go ahead and click on there. So you have your board forms, your Florida forms, and your Fannie Mae forms. And we'll go back into this a little bit later, but this is where you find them. Under My Files, up at the top, you have information regarding your files. Any file that you've created, you can create a folder, you can input that filing information right inside. For example, if you constantly work with a specific building and you have all of the association information and you've created a file, you can go ahead and click on New File Folder and upload from your desktop all of the information regarding that association. If you need to constantly input that into a transaction, they've created that there. Also up at the top, we have our contacts, and this is where we house all of our contacts. To create a new contact, you would simply click on New Contact. I'm going to click back on home and continue to show you what you have available on the dashboard before we deep dive into a transaction. Moving in the middle, if you have any transactions that have already been created, they would be listed here. You can have up to 6 or 7 that are going to be available on your dashboard. To get started with one, you would simply click on Start a New Transaction. Moving down, we can create form packages. What are form packages? They're basically a specific type of transaction that you know will house specific documents that you can use over and over. So for example, you can create a rental package, a as-is package, etc. You also have the ability to create a new clause. Clauses are specific verbiage that you need to add into transactions. Instead of having them written down in a piece of paper or on a file inside of Word, you can go ahead and create a new clause. Again, you have the ability to add a contract, and you can request for form programming provided by Form Simplicity. Okay. Let's get started in adding a new transaction. You can do that by clicking on the Start a New Transaction. And right in here, the first step it's going to ask you to do is it's going to ask you to enter an address. So I looked in the MLS today, and I just picked one at random. I'm going to name my transaction or input the street address to get started. Once I've named my transaction, I can go ahead or entered my street address. I can go ahead and now name my transaction by simply checking off where it says same as address. I can also include the name of my customer if I'd liked. So if I wanted to add it, I can simply add the customer if I wanted to. Okay, so you can either do it on the beginning of the address or the ending, depending on how you want to organize your files inside of the system. Next, I would click on the type of property. So it's a residential property. And then the type of transaction. I'm going to go ahead and select that it's a purchase transaction. Okay, but you do have the options of listing, purchase, listing and purchase, and then of course your lease or your rentals. Moving down, these are use form packages. If your brokerage has created packages, you'll see them here where you can go ahead and select the packages that your broker has already created. I want to show you how to go ahead and select one form at a time just in case you don't have these available for you yet. And I also want to show you how to create your own form packages. So instead of selecting from the brokerage fields, I can go ahead and simply click on Create Transaction. If you do have brokerage files, though, take advantage of those because your broker has taken the time to create a package which will include all of the forms that you need or that's obligated for your office to do that specific type of transaction. Moving forward, up at the top, we now have My Transactions, which is this is now on my home screen and available. This transaction can be shared, but under shared transactions, what I'll find there is if another agent has shared a transaction with me. We also have up at the top archive transactions. This means that once I've completed my transaction, I can archive it. It'll no longer be on my main dashboard, but I still have access to review those records at a later time. I now have tasks available, which we can create tasks associated with this transaction. That means that if I need a reminder to request a deposit, I can go ahead and add that task. We have the task list template where we can go ahead and use the task list template to create tasks for this document. Again, you have the orange button, which is how to archive a transaction. You can also delete a transaction, but once you've deleted it, you've deleted the entire transaction. You would then have to start anew. On the right-hand side, I did want to show you that you have a feedback bar. If I click it, I can automatically give feedback to Form Simplicity. They do read it. They do respond to you. Exiting out. This transaction email is available for you. Okay, you see this transaction email is going to be assigned to any new transaction that you create. What that means is if I email this or somebody emails this transaction file, if somebody emails documents to this specific transaction email, those documents will go into my Form Simplicity and I can save them inside of this transaction. Okay, and that's the transaction email. I can also update or input a photo, so you can simply click on the camera. I can click here to browse your device. I'm going to simply select a picture that I have. Click on Open. And then click on Add Property Photo. And now I have a photo, so now I can look when I see my transactions. This is the thumbnail. This is what it looks like. I have the full address, the type of property that it is, the type of purchase. We've already inputted that information. And I now have a drop-down menu which will show more data. I do have the option to simply click inside and enter that information manually. Okay, instead of inputting that information manually, we also have the option to import property data. So I'm going to click on here. And I have two options. I can input the MLS search information using an MLS number, or I can input, if I click on this circle, the tax search information if I input any of the information listed below or the parcel ID. You want to make sure the county listed, if I'm using the tax search, to update that to the county where your property is located. For example, I would update this one to Miami-Dade. For this example, I'm going to show you both. I'm going to enter the MLS number to show you what you can receive. You do receive a little bit more information if you pull it from the MLS, but if it's not in the system or you don't have the MLS number, the tax search is also available. Once I inputted the MLS information, I'm going to click on the green button that says Import MLS Data. I'm going to scroll a little bit down and you're going to see that I have my listing. Confirm that that's the correct address. Then I'm going to click on the green button that says Select. This is all of the information that's inputted by the system. Now that I want to show you how to go ahead and input the tax information, I'm going to take a second and copy the parcel ID. Right, so if I'm in the MLS, that's another option, or if you're looking it up in one of your tax roll services, the easiest way is to pull the parcel ID, or some of us call it the folio number. Moving down, it also has the option, if I pulled it from the MLS, to include the main listing photo. It's also going to include the information of the listing agent as well as my information. I'm going to save the information to the transaction, and it's updated my photo to the picture listed on the MLS. Okay, and if I click on the Show More Data, that information has already been inputted for me. Okay, so some of the information you can still go back and input. You'll have to manually input that information, such as the association fees and the listing and purchasing agreement date, but most of it was able to be pulled. You also have the option to import property data using the tax search. So this is easy to do. I have to remember to change my county. So this property is in Miami-Dade. So I'd simply find Miami-Dade, paste my parcel ID, and click on Find Tax Data. And here would be my information. I would simply select it. Okay. And you have less information available for you. You don't have, you do have the seller and landlord name, seller or landlord, but you don't have the office information. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of here, and save my data. So you want to make sure to save as you go. Now that we have this information all set up, I'm going to move down. You have your forms and your files that you can input into this transaction. So far, think of it as an open folder with an image. Moving to the right-hand side, we have the option to e-sign if you have the upgrade. We have the option to print, email, fax, merge. Merge means any of the forms and files that I input, they'll all be merged into one file instead of clicking through multiple files. But once you've merged it, you can't unmerge it. You also have the ability to delete, copy the entire transaction into another one, or download the information. Now I want to show you how I can add forms. Under Forms, you have Add Blank Forms and Add from Form Packages. So if you've created a package or you have your broker packages, you can click here. If you do not, you can add from blank forms. Now that I've clicked Blank Forms, you do have a library. If I use the drop-down arrow and you know where these forms are coming from, whether that's the board, Florida Realtors, or Fannie Mae, you can select, or you can do all libraries to search inside of all libraries. Immediately, it's going to give me a list of information or documents in alphabetical order. You can also search forms. So if I'm interested in creating an as-is contract, I'm going to go ahead and put in that name, and I'm going to click on the little eyeglass, and nothing came up. So let's do as is without the line, and then click on the eyeglass. And now I have any of the contracts that are listed with the word as is. If I now like to, I can select the files that I'd like to input or the contracts that I'd like to input into my package, or better said, transaction. I'm going to go ahead and select all of them and then click on the green button on the bottom right hand side that says add to transaction. Now I have my files attached. I can of course always go back into add blank forms and search for any additional forms that I'd like. So for example, COVID. I want to add my COVID extension. I'm going to go ahead and select that and click add to transaction. And now that's now added inside. I also have the option to move the order of my files. So I can simply grab and drag downward, and I've moved COVID to the bottom. So simply click on the 3 lines and move them in the order that you prefer. Okay. For example, all files, you'll see a title, the type of form, right, the date, and then it's a saved as file. Now that you have files available, I'm going to go ahead and click on one because we need to fill them out. In clicking on a file, you'll then have all of the information available for you to be able to fill out. So you can simply click on the fillable sections and you can fill out the information of the seller and the buyer. You also can scroll through the pages and input the information that you know that you need to input. If you've never filled out a contract before, I suggest contacting your broker for guidance to make sure that the needs of your customer are met in the contract and it's filled out correctly. You can input the price point. It's all fillable. Simply by clicking and typing, you can input that information. Okay, and you can go through the information and you can go ahead and input it. So it's 12 pages worth of input. Aside from that, you can go ahead and insert clauses, right? So if we're going to go ahead and create a clause, you can go ahead and you'll have them housed here. We'll learn how to create a clause in a little bit. On the right-hand side, I want you to see that you can print this information, you can save it, and view it. Exit out. Save and close. Okay. So moving down, you would do the same for each of your contracts in order to have a completed contract, right? Scrolling down, I also want to show you that you have files. If anybody were to email you to this email address that I pointed out earlier, those files would be housed under files. Moving down, we have our transaction participants. So if you wanted to autofill the names of your sellers and your buyers into your contract instead of manually inputting them, you can click on transaction participants. Under transaction participants, since we use the information of the MLS, you are going to have the seller's brokerage information. So you'll have the seller broker and the seller agent. You'll also have your seller broker, your buyer broker, and you yourself as your buyer agent. If I wanted to add the parties, for example, add the seller parties, I would simply click on add seller parties. And then I would select my first one, seller party 1. You can go ahead and add from your contracts if you've already inputted that information. If not, you can input the information from here. So Mr. Buyer Palmetto. Okay, you can go ahead and input that information, and you can also input an email address. So I'll put an email address that I have access to. Okay, so I went ahead, I inputted an email address that I have access to, but you can go ahead and put his full address, his party ID, his phone number from home, work, cell phone, or fax. You can also include seller party 2. So you can enter Ms. Palmetto, okay, with her information. The seller brokerage information will already be available for you. And the seller agent. So simply click on Save Seller Information and move on to the buyer side. Here's Add Buyer Parties. So you can go ahead and click on Add Buyer Parties. And you can input that information as well. Mr. New Palmetto, you can enter his email address, and you can do the same thing for the second party. Scroll down to the bottom and save the buyer information. Now that I've inputted my transaction participants, I'm going to go ahead and click on the green bar and move up to my Asis contract. And that information has been moved into our contract. Okay, so wherever the parties of the seller or the buyer's name need to be, it will reflect on this contract. Also, towards the end of the document, this is 12 pages. Let me scroll for a second so I can get you there. Okay, you'll have the information of the listing agent, the listing brokerage information, my information, and the cooperating broker information. Okay, exiting out. I did want to show you how we can input the transaction participants. Okay, so now that we know how to do that, we also have our tasks. So if you wanted to create a new task for this transaction, that we know that we can find all of the tasks for all contracts up at the top, you can go ahead and click Create New Tasks, input it. So for example, deposit. Click on Save New Task List. Okay, and now you do have that information available. Okay, and you can add multiples. You also have the ability to add a date. Clicking on Create Task. Okay, so I do have the name, the specific task. You will get and you will receive notifications regarding tasks. So you do want to go ahead and be able to check them off once they're completed so you don't have to continue to see this notification. You can also click on it and you can delete a task or update the task. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out and click on tasks so we can move into e-sessions. I'm going to do a little bit later. You have collaborations. Collaborations is a great tool. You have the option to share your file with another party. So let's say you're a new agent and you wanted to share your documents with an office manager or your broker or a team member to review your contract before you sent it, or if you're collaborating with another listing agent. For example, anybody that you wanted to collaborate this, you have the option to do this here. Legally, there's particular people you should and shouldn't collaborate. Again, that's why you have your legal hotline. But to show you the function, you have the option to click on collaborate. And in here, you can input an email address. So you would input the person that you're interested in collaborating with. Okay, once you put the email, you have the subject. You can add a message, etc. We have our signature and then you can click on Send Collaboration Link. Okay, so she'll immediately receive the collaboration link, but you want to make sure to be able to manage your documents. If you don't manage the documents, she will receive the link and she won't have access to anything. So click on Manage. And once you click on Manage, you open up Forms and you suggest, or you can click on the forms that she's able to manage on her end using that link. So now that I've selected all of them, you also have your files. Remember, the files are any documents you uploaded using that email address. Once I've selected the files, I can exit out. And now she has options to manage that information. Okay, if she writes back any additional comments to you, which you'll have access on that link, those comments can be seen here. If she says, I haven't received the information, I don't see it in my email, you can always resend that information. And if you want to remove or disable access, you can simply click on Enable to Disable. And now she no longer has access to that link. Okay, and that's collaborating. Moving down, you have your email history. So any emails being sent regarding this transaction will be shown here. And then you have your history of your transaction. So anything done with this particular transaction, it's all labeled. You have your actions received, which person on the team has done this, and it's all time stamped and dated. Okay, so this is basically everything associated with the inside of a transaction and the things that you can do. We did talk about all of these that are available for you. If I open up my forms and I click on one of them, you have the option to print these information. So let's go over this area. You can print it, and it will say that each copy will have its own unique serial number. This is created because you don't want somebody to be able to print and combine different documents together. Each document or each page on the document, when you print it, since it's no longer inside of the system, it does want to give you that serial number. And on the bottom of each page, it's going to have this serial number here at the bottom. Okay, so you can't combine multiple. Aside from printing, you can email the information. So I can simply select and I can email. Okay, so you can go ahead and email it. Input a subject. Okay, you do have your information. It does explain to them that if they wanted to simply print, sign, they can go ahead and email me back to that email address. Okay, so I can receive that information back into my contract, and then I have my signature. I can decide whether I wanted to send me a copy or if I wanted to disable editing. Okay, and then I can send my email. Aside from sending email, it's going to ask me to enter the contact since it hasn't been entered as of yet into this transaction. Okay, so it does remind you if you're missing something, if you've added to an additional person, it will prompt you to do so. Moving on, we do have the fax information. So you can fax. If you don't have access to a fax machine, that's okay. You can simply put in the information and they can give you their fax number. You can input that here and you can even add a message. Okay, and you also have an option that they can fax you back. Even though you don't have the machine, Form Simplicity will take care of that for you. So once you sent that out and you faxed it, I can scroll down. Here it is. So under Files, you have a fax back cover page. So this is what's sent out to them whenever you fax it. I want to download it so you can see what's on the cover page when you fax. Let me open that up. Okay, and it is going to have your contact information up at the top, where to send the fax to, international use as well with a barcode. It's going to have the names of the of the participants or who you're going to send it to, the message that you sent to the sender, and then of course your information is automatically inputted with the Form Simplicity logo and the Florida Realtor logo. So yes, not a lot of people use faxes, but if you have to use them, Form Simplicity has your back. Okay, so aside from fax, you have your merging option where you can add or select the contracts that you want to merge. So if I was going to merge something, I'd have to select more than one. Click on merge, and I can go ahead and create a file name and merge those documents by clicking merge documents. Once they're merged, I can't unmerge them. I also have the option to delete. So let's say I don't need my COVID extension addendum. I can simply click on that and delete that transaction or that form from my transaction. Okay, so now I'm down to 3. And then down here or to your right-hand side, you can also download a document. You have the option to download it as a zip file or as a locked forms. Bottom left side of my screen, I can go ahead and open up those forms. Okay, and I have that information here available. Okay, so now that we've gone over basically everything associated with the transaction, let's look at e-sign. So I can go ahead and select my file. I can click on e-sign, and I can get that started. I'm going to go ahead and select the seller party. I also have the option to create a new session, and that's what I'm going to do now. So click on create a new session to use my e-sign. In order to use e-sign, you do need the upgrade. And I'm now inside of my e-sign. So up here at the top, you can invite signatures. We're going to upload session documents, add signing locations, preview, and then start our signing session. In the middle, you have your transaction name. You also have your transaction title. That you want to input. And then, of course, you're going to input your message to your customer. Okay, we have our signature towards the bottom. You can also include or CC another email if you'd like. On the right-hand side, you can go ahead and send to one signer at a time in order. You also have the option to send to all signers at once. You can also include me as a signer if you would like. Allow signers to delegate to another person. You can also send carbon copy emails of the final documents as an attachment. You can also set reminders. So if they did not sign that day as you preferred that they did, you can go ahead and include those reminders and then create an expiration date as well. Moving on, clicking on next. The little wizard up at the top or this system has taken me into invite signers. So I can go ahead and add signers if I'd like, open them up from my address book. But right now I'm just going to select Buyer Palmetto Bay and move forward by clicking on next. Okay, so now that I have the information here, I can use the drop down arrows, put them down as buyer 1. I also have the option to include other parties, but I'm not going to do that right now, so I can do the example, clicking on next. It is going to let me know that I have not added all the signing locations and I have not assigned to the signer. So it is reminding me that I have not completely done this, which is okay. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and select my document and I'm going to click on next. and I'm going to have options. So on the left-hand side, these are all the actions that you're requesting for the signee to do. They can sign, they can initial, they can date and time. They also have the option to create a form field. So you can create a form field where they can type in information. You also have a drop down. So if you wanted to create a drop down inside of your contract, you can do that. You can also have them pick or check a certain section. And then you also have the ability to add a radio button. On the right hand side, you can do any markup. So you can add text, you can strike through, underline, highlight information, check mark anything, or save. So for example, if I wanted to strike through something, I can move the bar. I can simply drag and click it if I'd like to, and I can extend that information with my mouse. That's basically how everything works in this section. It's a drag and drop. So if I now need the initials for this or the signature for this, I can simply drag that information where I need it to be signed. And I can also drag maybe the information of the date and time that they need to drag it. This section, this is a great section. If you ever get stuck in this area, that you can contact the tech support. They can log in right into the system and assist you in moving past or wherever you got stuck. So after I created any of my actions or any of my markups, of course, you have 12 pages to review. You would then click on Next to keep going. Markups have been added. So it does let you know that they've been added. They're going to stay and they cannot be undone. And you have to agree. Clicking on yes to move forward. Okay, it does give you an opportunity to add signing locations. So if I scroll down, you can see that the system automatically inputted that signature based on the person that I've selected. So I selected the buyer initials. So on every buyer initial, it's going to have that information available. It's also going to give me the opportunity to continue to add additional signees onto my contract. Clicking on next to move forward. This is the option to review the signing session. So if I made any mistakes, I can take this time to go ahead and review the information. And if I have to change it, I can click on previous. Okay, I'm not going to make any changes, so I'm going to click on next. Now that I've clicked on next, it gives me the opportunity to go ahead and add a personal note to my signee. And it's also gonna include my signature that I created inside of my preferences. So inside of the preferences of Form Simplicity, if you add your signature, you can see all of the different areas that your signature will automatically populate for you. You have the option to bold your lettering, italicize, or underline. You can also change words positioned in the email. Clicking on Finish. I now have my signing information that's available for me. My transaction name is going to be available for me, the title of my session. I can click to view the email message. I have my signee information. I also have my session documents. And I also have my session activity log that's available for me. I can view it if I'd like to. Regarding the session documents, I can, of course, always go back and edit, view, and preview the signing locations that there's 16. I can always click to view the email that I've sent out. Exiting out, clicking on home. We have gone ahead and we've been able to send out that e-session that's available for us. So if I click on transaction, What did I want to do? If I click on transaction, here we go. Regarding my transaction status, I can go ahead and update that information. So I can put new, active, pending, closed, leased, expired, or withdrawn. So I can go ahead and select active since it's in the motion of being signed. As well, if I go into my transactions, I also have the ability to share it. And I can share it here with this three-pronged share. I have the option to go ahead and create, manage, and share. So if I click on the green button, I'm not going to have access to it yet because I need to create who I'm going to share it with. So I can go ahead and search. For a team member. Okay. And I can, under her team member name, I can go ahead and select whether she can read and write it, or if she has full access. And now I can go ahead and add her to my team. But before I do that, I need to give it a name. So I've added a name, I've found my available team member, and now I can create a team. And now she'll have full access to this transaction. And it's submitting still. This is how you create a team. It's submitting. It's taking a little while. And I want to move forward with the class. We don't have much time left, so I'm going to exit out. Once it submits and you allow it to submit because we're patient, you can go ahead and see that these three little buttons, this share icon is going to change. It's going to change from black to green. And it's going to be an indication that you have gone ahead and updated that information. Under blank forms, I do want to show you that you do have blank forms available for you. They are here. You can search them. So instead of starting a transaction from blank forms, right, from transactions and inputting forms, you can start a transaction from your library where you can find any of the information that you're looking for. Also, if you click on the names, you're also able to see all of the transactions. Let's say that you're looking for something regarding a buyer's walkthrough and you're not sure whether it's the buyer's walkthrough that you need, or maybe if you need the buyer's disclosure statement, you're not quite sure. You do have these looking glasses that you can click and it will preview, or you'll have a preview to the document before you select it, right? And that assists you in that way. Each document is available to print, email, and download. Aside from your forms library under blank forms, you also have available to you form packages. So in order to create a form package, you would simply click on create new package, and you would work it in the same way as if you were going to do a transaction, but instead of filling a transaction, you're filling your personal packages. So I'm going to do Asis Contract and create a form package. Now that I see that it's been successfully created, I can move down here. And here you're going to also find your broker packages if you have them. If not, you'll have your personal ones that you've created. So for example, I've recently created the Asis Contract. You'll have your created date, and you also have the ability to create the transactions with these packages. You also have the option to click it back into it and edit the name. Okay, so once I click inside of the package, think of it as a blank folder. I still need to input the information inside. Okay, so to input the information inside under forms, you have add a form that you can go ahead and click, and you'll have the library available for you. You can go ahead and type in the information that you're looking for and add those transactions or those documents that you always use to transact with that particular package that you're creating. Okay, so once you've done that, you can go ahead and now that it's saved, you have it available for you. This is completed and you can now print, email, delete, download, or make a copy of this package. Aside from creating form packages, you also have the ability to create a clause. So I do have an example of one of the clauses here, but you can add a new clause if you wish. So if you have specific broker clauses, they would be listed. Let me exit out. Under brokerage wide. Okay, so I don't have anything listed, so I don't have anything here. But if I were to include my own, I could add a new clause. Okay, so for example, that's my clause. I can simply click on Save New Clause. And if I wanted to go back into a transaction and add that clause, I can simply click on my transaction, open up one of my files, scroll down, click where I'd like to add it, and then up on the left-hand top side, I have the option to insert that clause. Okay, so wherever you'd like to input that information, you have it available for you. Okay, and that's how you insert a clause using Form Simplicity. Let me exit out. Close without saving. Okay, and these are your blank forms. Of course, my files we went over, and then under contacts, you can go ahead and add a new contact, clicking on new contact, inputting the first name, the last name, those are the mandatory fields. You have the option to include the street address, their home email, their work email, phone number, cell phone number, and where you receive that lead source. You can also group them. Okay. Exiting out, back into home. And that's basically all of Form Simplicity. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I hope that if you have any questions, you will contact us here. My email address is christy@miamire.com. I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to help you and answer any of your questions. We also have available that tech helpline that you can also use. I see that Connie was very busy in the chat. Thank you so much, Connie, for all of your assistance today inside of the chat. The upgrade for the e-sign, I believe, is $79 for the year. You also have the option of using Miami Platinum Plus, which is provided by the Miami Association of Realtors, which also includes the upgrade. And it also includes different services like RealDocs as well as eProperty. You get a credit for a designation, so you can take an additional class. And you can sign up for the upgrade up at the top. So you can contact them, of course, under your preferences. You have the option to see your account information. You have the option that you can see what kind of addition you do have. So you can contact Form Simplicity directly at their contact information. So under help, you can reach them at the tech helpline. that they have available for you. That you can also sign up in the area under settings. So if you don't want to talk to a person and you prefer to go into your settings, by all means, you can go ahead and do so. Thank you so much, Connie, for all your help with all of the questions that we have inside of the chat. Connie has shared with the chat all of our access information and our email address that you can reach us directly. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. If you'd like to do the entire class again, but in Spanish, me and Connie will be here at 2:30. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Happy Thanksgiving. Connie just resent the link so you can access our YouTube channel to repeat the Form Simplicity class. You also have the recordings under Miami Realtor Live, as well as contact to our social media and our calendar.